Welcome to this evening's reading from the Mowgli stories. And we are on page 69. The chapter heading is How Fear Came. It goes like this: the law of the jungle, which is by far the oldest law in the world, has arranged for almost every kind of accident and provided for every emergency. And its code is as perfect as time and custom can make it. And you will remember how Mowgli was tutored in the law of the jungle by Balu the bear. And Balu taught him everything, but Mowgli, being a little boy, whatever went in one ear went out the other because he couldn't be bothered. But so Balu told him, there is no escaping these laws. You must learn. When you have lived as long as I live, little brother, you will see how all the jungle obeys at least one law. And that will be no pleasant sight, said Balu. So this talk went in one ear and out the other. For a boy who spends his life eating and sleeping, does not worry about anything till it actually stares him in the face. But one year, Balu's words came true, and Mowgli saw all the jungle working under the law. It began when the winter rains failed almost entirely, and Iki, the porcupine, meeting Mowgli in a bamboo thicket, told him that the wild yams were drying up. Now everybody knows that Iki is ridiculously fastidious in his choice of food and will eat nothing but the very best and ripest. So Mowgli laughed and said, "What is that to me, if the wild yams are drying up?" "Not much now," said Iki, rattling his quills in a stiff, uncomfortable way. "But later we shall see. Is there any more diving into the deep rock pool below the bee rocks, little brother?" asked Iki. "No, the foolish water is going all away, and I do not wish to break my head," said Mowgli, who in those days was quite sure that he knew as much as any 5 of the jungle people put together. "That is your loss. A small crack might let in some wisdom," chuckled Iki. And he ducked immediately to prevent Mowgli from knocking him on his head. And Mowgli told Balu that what Iki had said. Balu looked very grave and mumbled half to himself, "If I were alone, I would change my hunting grounds now, before the others begin to think. And yet, hunting among strangers ends in fighting, and they might hurt the man cub. We must wait and see how the mohua blooms." That spring, the mohua tree that Balu was so fond of never flowered. The greeny, cream-colored, waxy blossom were heat-killed before they were born. The greeny, cream-colored, waxy blossoms were killed by the heat before they were born, and only a few bad-smelling petals came down when he stood on his hind legs and shook the tree. Then, inch by inch, the untempered heat crept into the heart of the jungle, turning it yellow, brown, and at last black. The green growths on the sides of the ravines burned up to broken wires and curled films of dead stuff. The hidden pools sank down and caked over, keeping the least footmark on their edges as if it had been cast in iron. The juicy-stemmed creepers fell away from the trees they clung to and died at their feet. The bamboos withered, clanking when the hot winds blew, and the moss peeled off the rocks deep in the jungle, till they were as bare and as hot as the quivering blue boulders in the bed of the stream. The birds and the monkey people went north early in the year, for they knew what was coming. And the deer and the wild pig broke far away to the perished fields of the village, dying sometimes before the eyes of men too weak to kill them. Chill the kite stayed and grew fat, for there was a great deal of carrion, and evening after evening he brought the news to the beasts, too weak to force their way to the fresh hunting grounds, that the sun was killing the jungle for 3 days' flight in every direction. Mowgli, who had never known what real hunger meant, fell back on stale honey, 3 years old, scraped out of deserted rock hives, honey black as sloe and dusty with dried sugar. He hunted too for deep boring grubs under the bark of the trees, and robbed the wasps of their new broods. All the game in the jungle was no more than skin and bone, and Bagheera could kill thrice in a night and hardly get a full meal. But the want of water was the worst, for though the jungle people drink seldom, they must drink deep. And the heat went on and sucked up all the moisture, till at last the main channel of the Wainganga was the only stream that carried a trickle of water between its dead banks. And when Hathi, the wild elephant, who lives for 100 years and more, saw a long, lean, blue ridge of rocks show dry in the very center of the stream, he knew that he was looking at the Peace Rock. And then and there he lifted up his trunk and proclaimed the water truce, as his father before him had proclaimed it 50 years ago. The deer, wild pig, and buffalo took up the cry hoarsely, and Chill the kite flew in great circles far and wide, whistling and shrieking the warning. By the law of the jungle, it is death to kill at the drinking places, when once the water truce has been declared. The reason for this is that drinking comes before eating. Everyone in the jungle can scramble along somehow when only game is scarce. But water is water, and when there is but one source of supply, all hunting stops while the jungle people go there for their needs. In good seasons, when the water was plentiful, those who came down to drink at the Wainganga, or anywhere else for that matter, did so at the risk of their lives, and that risk made no small part of the fascination of the night's doings. To move down so cunningly that never a leaf stirred, to wade knee-deep in the roaring shallows that drown all the noise from behind, to drink, looking back over one shoulder, every muscle ready for the fast, desperate bound of keen terror, to roll on the sandy margin and return wet-muzzled and well-plumped out to the admiring herd, was a thing that all antlered young bucks took a delight in, precisely because they knew that at any moment Bagheera or Sher Khan might leap upon them and bear them down. But now all that life and death fun had ended, and the jungle people came up, starved and weary, to the shrunken river. The tiger, bear, deer, buffalo, and pig all together drank the foul waters and hung above them, too exhausted to move off. The deer and the pig had tramped all day in search of something better than dried bark and withered leaves. The buffaloes had found no wallows to be cool in, and no green crops to steal. The snakes had left the jungle and come down to the river in the hope of finding a stray frog. They curled up around the wet stones, and never offered to strike when the nose of a rooting pig dislodged them. The river turtles had long ago been killed by Bagheera, the cleverest of hunters, and the fish had buried themselves deep in the dry mud. Only the peace rock lay across the shallows like a long snake, and the little tired ripples hissed as they dried on its hot side. So that's the tragedy, that there is a water shortage. It was here that Mowgli came nightly for the cool and the companionship. The most hungry of his enemies would hardly have cared for the boy then. His naked hide made him seem more lean and wretched than before than any of his followers. His hair was bleached to tow color by the sun. His ribs stood out like the ribs of a basket, and the lumps on his knees and elbows, where he used to track on all fours, gave his shrunken limbs the look of knotted grass stems. But his eye under his matted forelock was cool and quiet, for Bagheera was his adviser in this time of trouble, and told him to go quietly, hunt slowly, and never on any account to lose his temper. "It's an evil time," said Bagheera, "one furnace hot evening, but it will go if we can live till the end. Is your stomach full, Mowgli?" There is stuff in my stomach," said Mowgli, "but I get no good of it. Thank you, Bagheera. Do you think that rains have forgotten us and will never come again?" "No, not I. We shall see the mohua in blossom yet, and the little fawns all fat with new grass. Come down to the to the Peace Rock, and hear the news. On my back, little brother." "Oh, there's no time to carry weight. This is no time to carry weight. I can stand alone. But indeed, we are not fatted bullocks, we two." Bagheera looked along his ragged, dusty flank and whispered, "Last night I killed a bullock under the yoke. So low was I brought that I think I should not have dared to spring if he had been loose." Wow, so he is regretting that he killed a bullock which was tied to a plough. Mowgli laughed. "Yes, we are great hunters now. I am very bold to eat grubs." And the two came down together through the crackling undergrowth to the river bank and the lacework of shoals that ran out from it in every direction. "The water cannot live long," said Balu, joining them. "Look across. Yonder are the trails, like the roads of man." On the level plain on the farther bank, the stiff jungle grass had dried, standing and dying, all heading towards the river. The striped that colorless plain with dusty gullies driven through the 10-foot grass. And early as it was, each long avenue was full of first-comers hastening to the water. You could hear the does and the fawns coughing in the snuff like dust. Upstream, all at the bend of the sluggish pool, round the Peace Rock, the warden of the water truce, stood Hathi, the wild elephant, with his sons gaunt and grey in the moonlight, rocking to and fro, always rocking. Below him a little were the vanguard of the deer. Below these, again, the pig and the wild buffalo. And on the opposite bank, where the tall trees came down to the water's edge, was the place set apart for the eaters of flesh: the tiger, the wolves, the panther, the bear, and the others. "We are under one law indeed," said Bagheera, wading into the water and looking across at the lines of clicking horns and staring eyes where the deer and pig pushed each other to and fro. "Good hunting, all of you of my bloods," he added, lying down at full length, one flank thrust out of the shallows, and then between his teeth, he said, "But for that which is the law it would be very good hunting. The quick spread ears of the deer caught that last sentence, and a frightened whisper ran along the ranks. The truce, remember the truce. Peace there, peace, gurgled Hathi, the wild elephant. The truce holds, Bagheera. This is no time to talk of hunting. Who should know better than that, than I, said Bagheera, rolling his yellow eyes up the stream. I am eater of of turtles and fishes. Excuse me. I am eater of turtles, a fisher cub, and man cub. That the cub is neither man nor cub, or he would have been afraid. Next season I shall have to beg his leave for a drink. That may come too, said Bagheera, looking him steadily between his eyes. That may come too. Shere Khan, what new shame have you brought here? The lame tiger had dipped his chin and jowl in the water and drank. Only streaks were floating from its downstream. Man, said Shere Khan coolly, I killed an hour since. He went on purring and growling to himself. The line of beasts took and watched to and fro, and a whisper went up that grew into a cry. Man, man, he has killed man. Then all looked towards Hathi, the wild elephant, but he seemed not to hear. Hathi never does anything till the time comes, and that is one of the reasons why he lives so long. So, at such a season as this, to kill man was no other game afoot, said Bagheera scornfully, drawing himself out of the tainted water and shaking each paw, cat fashion, and he did so. I killed for choice and not for food, the horrified whisper began again, and Hathi's watchful little eye cocked itself in Shere Khan's direction. For choice, Shere Khan drawled. Now come I to drink and make me clean again. Is there any to forbid? So this Shere Khan has told that he has killed man, and he has come to the water to clean himself. Bagheera's back began to curve like a bamboo in a high wind, but Hathi lifted up his trunk and spoke quietly. Like your kill was from choice. No, your kill was from choice, he asked. And when Hathi asks a question, it is best to answer. Even so, it was my right and my night. You know, O Hathi, Shere Khan spoke almost courteously. Yes, I know, Hathi answered, and after a little silence, have you drunk your fill? For tonight, yes. Go then, the river is to drink, and not to defile. None but the lame tiger would have boasted of his fight at this season when we suffered together, man and jungle people alike. Clean or unclean, go to your lair, Shere Khan. The last words rang out like silver trumpets, and Hathi's 3 sons rolled forward half a space, though there was no need. Shere Khan slunk away, not daring to growl, for he knew what everyone else knows, that when the last comes to the last, Hathi is the master of the jungle. What is this right Shere Khan speaks of? Mowgli whispered in Bagheera's ear. To kill man is always shameful. The law says so, and yet Hathi says. Ask him, I don't know, little brother, right or no right. If Hathi had not spoken, I would have taught that lame butcher a lesson. To come to the Peace Rock fresh from a kill of man and to boast of it is a jackal's trick. Besides, he tainted the good water. Mowgli waited for a minute to pick up his courage, because no one cared to address Hathi directly, and then he cried, What is Shere Khan's right, O Hathi? Both banks echoed his words, For all the people of the jungle are intensely curious, and they had just seen something that none except Balu, who looked very thoughtful, seemed to understand. Nobody had understood. It is an old tale, said Hathi, a tale older than the jungle. Keep silence along the banks, and I will tell the tale. There was a minute or two of pushing and shouldering among the pig and the buffalo, and then the leaders of the herds grunted, and one after another, we wait, said Hathi, strode forward till he was nearly knee-deep in the pool by the Peace Rock. Lean and wrinkled and yellow-tusked though he was, he looked what the jungle knew him to be, their master. You know, children, he began, that all things, you know, children, that of all things you must fear man. And there was a mutter of agreement. This tale touches you, little brother, said Bagheera to Mowgli. I am of the pack, a hunter of the free people, Mowgli said. What have I to do with man? And you do not know why you fear man? Hathi went on. This is the reason. In the beginning of the jungle, and none know when that was, we of the jungle walked together, having no fear of one another. In those days there was no drought, and leaves and flowers and fruit grew on the same tree, and we ate nothing at all except leaves and flowers, and grass and fruit and bark. I am glad I was not born in those days, said Bagheera. Bark is only good to sharpen claws. And the lord of the jungle was Tha, the first of the elephants. He drew the jungle out of the deep waters with his trunk, and where he made furrows in the ground with his tusks, there the rivers ran, and where he struck with his foot, there rose ponds of good water. And when he blew through his trunk, the trees fell. That was the manner in which the jungle was made by Tha, the elephant. And so the tale was told to me. It has not lost fat in the telling, said Bagheera. And Mowgli laughed. In those days there was no corn or melons or pepper or sugarcane, nor were there any little huts such as you have all seen. And the jungle people knew nothing of man, but lived in the jungle together, making one people. But presently they began to dispute over their food. Though there was grazing enough for all, they were lazy. Each wished to eat where he lay, as sometimes we can do now when spring rains are good. Tha, the first of the elephants, was busy making new jungles and leading the rivers in their beds. He could not walk in all places, therefore he made the first of the tigers the master of the jungle, master and judge of the jungle, to whom the jungle people should bring their disputes. In those days, the first of the tigers ate fruit and grass with the others. He was as large as I am, and he was very beautiful in color, all over like the blossom of yellow creeper. There was never stripe nor bar upon his side. In those good old days, when this jungle was new, all the jungle people came before him without fear, and his word was the law of all the jungle. We were then one people, remember. Yet, upon a night, there was a dispute between two bucks, a grazing squirrel such as you now settle with the horns, and a grazing coral such as the one you settle now with the horns and forefeet. And it is said that as the two spoke together before the first of the tigers, lying among the flowers, a buck pushed him with his horns, and the first of the tigers forgot that he was the master of the jungle and he was a judge of the jungle, and leaping upon that buck, he broke his neck. Till that night, never one of us had died. And the first of the tigers, seeing what he had done, and being made foolish by the scent of the blood, ran away into the marshes of the north. And we of the jungle, left without a judge, fell to fighting amongst ourselves. And Tha heard the noise of it and came back. Then some of us said this and some of us said that. But he saw that the dead buck among the flowers and asked who had killed it. And we of the jungle would not tell because the smell of the blood made us foolish. We ran to and fro in circles, capering and crying and shaking our heads. Then Tha gave an order to the trees that hang low and to the trailing creepers of the jungle that they should mark the killer of the buck, so that he should know him again. And he said, who will now be master of the jungle people? Then up leaped the grey ape who lived in the branches and said, I will now be master of the jungle. At this Tha laughed and said, so be it, and went away very angry. Children, you know the grey ape. He was then as he is now. At the first he made a wise face for himself, but in a little while he began to scratch and to leap up and down. And when Tha came back, he found the grey ape hanging head down from a bough, mocking those who stood below, and they mocked him again. And so there was no law in the jungle, only foolish talk and senseless words. Then Tha called us all together again and said, the first of your masters has brought death into the jungle, and the second has brought shame. Now it is time that there was a law, and a law that you must not break. Now you shall know fear, and when you have found him, you shall know that he is your master, and the rest shall follow. Then we of the jungle said, what is fear? And Tha said, seek till you find. So we went up and down the jungle seeking for fear. And presently the buffaloes, yes, it was the buffaloes, they came back with the news that in a cave in the jungle sat fear, and that he had no hair and went up on his hind legs. Then we of the jungle followed the herd till we came to that cave, and fear stood in the mouth of it, and he was, as the buffaloes had said, hairless, and he walked upon his hind legs. When he saw us, he cried out, and his voice filled us with fear, that we have now of that voice when we hear it. And we ran away, tramping upon and tearing each other because we were afraid. That night, so it was told to me, we of the jungles did not lie down together as used to be our custom, but each tribe drew off by itself, the pig with the pig, the deer with the deer, horn to horn, hoof to hoof, like keeping to like, and so lay shaking in the jungle. We'll stop here because it's quite long. They are talking of the new danger, the fear. Thank you. We'll continue next time.